New chapter and a new way to measure angles. So far what we've been doing is we've been measuring things in terms of degrees, with the full rotation being 360 degrees. But starting in chapter 3 and pretty much from here on out, many of our angles are going to be in what's called radian measure. So what I'd like to do to begin this new journey, if you would, is take a look at what exactly do we mean by 1 radian or 1 rad. Or what does 2 radians look like? What does 3 radians look like? So what is a radian basically? And so what we're going to be doing, usually this is an activity we do in a face-to-face class, but I'll try to mimic what goes on. But what we're going to do is use the idea, and again you can blame the Greeks for this, but what they basically did to create 1 radian, right, what they first started is they measured the radius of the circle itself. So I've already gotten a little, I said yarn, but I already got a piece of paper that represents 1 radian. So that length right there, let me go ahead and kind of show you some depth there. So that represents one radius length. Okay, and then to create a radian measure, what we're going to do, this is going to be a little difficult, right? What we're going to do, maybe I should have used yarn, is we're going to take that and we're going to go along the edge. We call this the arc length. But what we're going to try to do is go 1 radius measure, so about right here, right? So here's my radius, and from this tick mark to this tick mark, I measured another radius length along the edge. And so what we basically have there, right, is if this is the initial side and we use that as a terminal side, there's your angle theta. And what that represents is 1 radian. So 1 radian basically is 1 radian equals 1 radius length on circumference of circle. Right? And when we make that tick mark again to form the angle, every angle needs an initial side and a terminal side. So once I measure that out, then what I'm basically doing is creating an angle by from the center to the first tick mark, from the center to the second tick mark after I've measured out 1 radius length along the edge. So there's what it means to be a radian. So we've created an angle by sweeping 1 radius length on the edge of the circle. So what does 2 radians look like? Well, we'll just keep it going. All right. So let me go ahead and do it from here. So again, if I go from 1 tick length and try to kind of measure it along that edge there, hopefully you guys, right, that roughly puts me about right here. All right. And so again, what I've measured, let me change colors. This angle that I've swept out there, right, let's put it in red, right, that is what we call a 2 radian, right, a 2 radian degree, because I measured 1 and I measured 2 radius lengths along the edge. So again, it's all about how many radius lengths do you go. So if we go 1 radius length along the edge, we've created 1 radian. If we go 2, we've created 2. So what does 3 look like? Well, we'll just keep playing the story up, and I'll change colors here. So I think, right, if I kind of measure as accurate as I can, right, so this ends right about here. All right, and so what we have, let me put it in black, I guess, right, is I just swept out, right, what is considered a 3 radian, right? So now we have 3 rads because I went 1 radius length, 2 radius lengths, 3 radius lengths along the edge. So so we basically get, right, that 3 radians isn't quite equal to, but it's really close to almost a half turn. And I'll nail that down in a moment. You guys might know something really significant. So there's what it means to be a radian. And so again, we have to be careful, right? If I want a half rad, then all I'm basically doing, right, is I'm getting my little measurement and I'm going along the edge, and I'm basically taking half of the radius length, right? So there's 1/2 of the radius length measured along the edge. So that would be angle that's in a half radian, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so be careful about what we do with regard to measuring now, because saying half degree and half radian are completely different. And we'll talk about notation here in a moment, but hopefully that gets you started. Let me go ahead and continue on. If I wanted 4 radian degrees, right, then I would basically come along here and I would measure 1 tick mark, I would measure 2 tick marks, I would measure roughly 3 tick marks, and then I would come back here and measure, see if I get that right, I would measure about 4 tick marks. So this angle right there, right, this would be a 4 rad angle, right, because I swept out 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 radius lengths, right, a radius length, a radius length, a radius length, and a radius length all along the edge. So that is what a radian is. It's basically a measurement of how many radius lengths, all right, on the circumference, right? Because the circumference is the whole way around. But I measured 4 radius lengths along the circumference. I measured half a radius length on the circumference. Over here I measured 1, 2, and 3 respectively. So that's what a radian is. It's basically a measurement of how many radius lengths there are on the edge of a circle. And so that is basically what a radian is. There's some formulas that we'll talk about in the near future, but it's basically that. And I lost my train of thought. There was something I wanted to let you guys know on. I think I'm actually getting to the next part. So how many radius lengths along the edge of a circle we are basically tells us how many radians we are. We're almost 7 minutes into this, so let's go ahead and do the next couple of investigations in another video, so these don't get too long and lengthy and I bore you to tears. Okay, so there's your introduction to radians. We're going to be using them quite frequently. We'll talk about notation and whatnot in a moment.